All right, good morning. Welcome to the Monday morning Zoom, Empowered to Have It All, where we go through the science of getting rich. So I'm just going to ask that question again for those that are in the recorded mode. Is your attitude worth catching this morning? And do you wish that your Isagenix team had the same attitude that you have right now? And that doesn't just happen by itself. Like, that's not something that just happens to you. There's work and effort and discipline that go into creating a good attitude. Again, it doesn't just happen to you. The world's more of like an entropy where it's more like gravity wants to pull you down rather than aspiring higher. So, our work's cut out for us. So do you have a routine that you're working on? Do you have a routine you're already in the habit of doing? Do you have the routine so habitual that you don't even give excellence to it anymore? You just go through the motions like some people do at work. Good questions to ask ourselves, just to take that personal evaluation. Where am I at on that? Because those things matter. Those are the things that matter. You don't get what you want, you get who you are. And what you are consistently that's your life right now. So is there room for improvement? Another good question to ask. Maybe one that might hurt a little bit because we think we've got it, oh, I got this, I understand all this stuff. But you look around in your life and how is it? Is it the life of your dreams? Are you moving in that direction? And if not, then there's room for improvement. Room for improvement. So I posted on Facebook today, I was listening to Bob Proctor. It was one that I downloaded like a week and a half ago, just knowing that I wanted to get around listening to it. And I finally listened to it this morning. And I posted in Facebook based on what Mary Morrissey had said right out of the gate on that recording. And I just reframed it up a little bit, but basically it's the same principle. Choose wisely your goal. You're trading your life for it. Choose wisely. Is your goal worthy of you and your time, effort, and energy? And if you don't have one, what is it you've been trading your life for? Whatever the wind blows you in whatever direction, whatever somebody dictates to you. So if you don't have a goal, what is it that you've been trading your life for? Is it worthy of you? And what's your justifications for not having one? And what's your justifications for not putting excellence into your goal? If you don't have that attitude this morning, maybe it's just one of those mornings that I caught you on an off day. But if you're consistently not having an attitude that your team should be catching every morning, then, what's your justifications for, the sour grapes or the depressed or worried or fearful or chasing something? Chasing, to me, is not a good attitude to have either. Like you're chasing after something that keeps eluding you. So again, just some good things to think about. And is there room for improvement? And kind of frame that up and blueprint that up, because it's your attitude that determines where you're going to go. It's your feeling, and that's who you're being. All right. So there was some text that I texted to myself this morning too. Not only do I talk to myself, I text myself. Let's see. Where is it? Right here. Oh, so do you feel like you want to be there now? So, this is you should have, I would imagine, I'm assuming at this point that you've pretty much got your compelling vision framed up, you're bullet pointing that, you're, getting to the deeper feelings of why do I want, the new clothes for my kids? Why do I want to take my wife to dinner and a movie? If I was just to put that's kind of a surface goal. Like it doesn't have any depth to it, no compelling reasons behind it. If I get it, that's cool. If I don't, I'm not really bothered with it because I don't have it already. So, do I have time, energy, and investment into my compelling vision? Have I gone deeper? Well, why do I want those for my kids? Why do I want to take my wife to dinner or movie? And you start going deeper underground, deeper into your soul as to why do you want those things. And the more things that you can do that with, the more the compelling reasons will be for you to get into action when you don't feel like it. So as you framed up your goal and your vision for yourself, do you feel like you want that like right now? Like you haven't set, one of the questions she asked in this audio that I was listening to, and there's some things that there's a perspective that I have about setting goals and putting a date on it. A date tells me I don't have it yet. And the law of assumption, that principle tells me that I do have it. So I don't want to send mixed emotions by putting a date on something, but there was a thing that came up about that. And a date, like, do you feel like you really want that now? Like you're ready to step into that life right now? Or do you have some reservations about it? They might be subconscious and there's just a feeling there that's causing some kind of emotion for you that isn't really embracing that desire that you have to be it right now. And so I've decided, my goal that I've framed up right now that I'm not being right now in the material world, I'm ready to embrace that and be it right now. Like I'm ready to step into it. And my actions show that, my feelings show that, my 3x5 cards show that. I'm not tiptoeing around it. I'm not cautiously approaching that, worried what other people might think. I want it right now. And all I've got to do is discipline myself to create the feeling so that, it starts to become who I am on that spiritual level. And then my RAS opens up and it starts to see the things that I wasn't seeing before. And then I started vibrating on that level and, all of the right things start showing up. I'm ready for that now. It's just discipline for me. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I don't care what their opinion might be of me. And I'm talking about people who are close to me and people that may kind of know me and people that don't even know me. I don't care what they think. I've already decided what I want. And I'm just wondering if you've decided that too. Are you ready on that level? Because sometimes that holds people back. Well, not sometimes, a lot of times that holds people back. So I put, if you feel like you want to be there now, no waiting, no still trying to decide if that's what you want. If you're not sure and haven't totally 100% decided, then you may want to put a date on it. Like, okay, maybe I'll be ready for it in June. Maybe I'll just put it out there and I'll just kind of test the water, and not embrace it and take it now. I'll just put a date on it out there. Then maybe you might want to put a date on it. If not, then step into it now. Start acting and being the person that is that person. But yet, if you're worried about what other people might think about that, and you might offend them, or you might, ruffle their feathers, and you're concerned about that, then there's, you got to maybe redecide what it is you really want. Because in order to implement the things that we're learning in the book, you have to have decided. Otherwise, there's going to be things that stand as a barrier between you and these principles you're learning. Melissa decided she wanted to be a swimmer. She put the swimming suit on. She didn't care what anybody thought as she went to the swimming pool for the first time, but she stepped into it. And she did it, right? She was ready to embrace that now. And are we tackling our Isagenix business that way? Are we approaching people that way? Are you approaching yourself that way? So another text that I said to myself, are you at home in your environment? And Bob was bringing this up. Bob Proctor, he said, creatures are at home in their environment. We have mental faculties and we're not satisfied. We're not satisfied with the environment that we have. So just some things I wanted to throw out before we jump into this today. What are we, and then that goes back to the Facebook post. That's what I had on my mind as I sent these texts. And so what am I trading my life for right now? Worry. I want to look up the word trepidation because we use that word. I used it last Zoom and I put intrepidation and it's trepidation. I think we looked it up. Let me just look again. Oops, that's not it. Trip. Tremulous fear, alarm, agitation, trembling or quivering movement. So do we kind of go forward that way? Or have we fallen so in love with our compelling vision that you'll give anything for it? You're willing to burn the boats in all areas, because if there's one area that's going to hold you back, 1% doubt is 0% faith. 1% doubt. So every area of your life, do you have any trepidation for you going after and accomplishing that compelling reason? If so, you need to go back to the drawing board on that compelling reason, because there can't be any trepidation that's a barrier between you and you stepping into that. Concerned with what other people might think. And it was a very profound impact that Don Nooner said to me, the second millionaire in Isagenix. If you're worried about what other people think about you, then you're not going to go anywhere until you get past that. Okay. Any thoughts on that? I'm going to just unmute everybody and then make it so you can unmute yourself.
Más sabe. I cook.
Okay, you should be able to unmute yourself if anybody has anything they want to share.
Okay, so I was thinking about this real quick, but caring about what people think. I have noticed I had a confrontation with my daughter this week, which she instigated, but last year we kind of had the same confrontation, and I was devastated by the words that she said and how she treated me as her mom. And this time it happened, and it was evidence to me that my mind is changing, because I didn't care about what she thought. I texted her back that I will not accept her criticism or untruth about what she's saying about me, and that's her choice. And I kept saying, it's her choice, your choice, it's your choice. And I was so calm, and it didn't affect me at all in that way that made me cry for 2 days last year. So
I think I remember you talking about that last year. I think I remember you talking about that. Yeah.
So it's on her, and I've been able to tell myself the truth about myself, and I just think that was a huge win for me this week, that I just like, hey, my mind's different. She doesn't control me. I'm not going to beg her back. She can have a great life without me. It's on her, and it'll resolve in time. But you know what I mean? I was so grateful. So I think that thinking about what other people think about me, including your own kids, is a huge deal for me. I always had referred to myself previously as the codependent Labrador mom that wants everybody happy all the time, and that's obviously not possible. So I'm very grateful that has shifted in my mind, that it's her choice if she wants to, whatever, all those things that would happen. So I'm very, 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 very grateful that I moved on and I didn't have it devastate me.
Yeah, there's some principles. That tells me that there's some principles that you've internalized and they're a part of you now. Because to react doesn't take any thought or discipline at all. And to respond, you have to think about it, and you have to reason within yourself. And the only way you could do that, like you just did, is principally based, putting some pieces of the puzzle together very quickly in your head, that they're now a part of you. Those principles, you've been working at this for a while now. And so those principles are a part of you that are helping you to govern your guiding philosophy. This is the same wind blows on us all. I mean, there's going to be, everybody has conversations like you just had with somebody that's close to them. And that same wind blows on us all. However, some people think there's this magical space that people live in that are successful, that for some reason that same wind doesn't blow on them. But we all have that same wind blown on us. So, it's like Jim Rohn says with the setting of your cell. same wind blows on us all. Melissa had that.
Right.
She didn't play victim. She didn't cry. She didn't have this feeling, of questioning herself. There's a lot of dynamics in there, but those are some of the important ones and others as well. But she just adjusted her cells so that she could keep going in the direction that she wants to. Most people don't adjust the cells and they just get pushed around. So that's a powerful example of doing the work, the investment in character, personality, and that's through you found that wisdom, that knowledge that King Solomon talks about, and all that get understanding. Because that's the difference it makes in your life. And that's everything. And then apply that now in other facets and the way that you're framing up your life and your way you want it to be. This would have taken you out. You would have been negating your goals if you went to the reaction. And how many days in a row would you have negated that? And then how much would it have permanently negated it because you just hung on to it?
Right.
But you've created a new wine bottle to put wine into, right?
Yeah.
You're not looking back like Lot's wife and preserving that old state. Your state has changed. And if you can change your state just 1 degree, where will you be 5 years from now? What if you could change it 2 degrees, 3 degrees, 4 degrees, 5 degrees? It's powerful.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
Dave.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, Malcolm.
BJ Fogg, the researcher at Stanford University Behavior Research Lab, totally agreed with
his sister is in our organization.
Yeah.
BJ Fogg, yeah, that's
right.
Awesome. Wow.
Wall Street Journal, he wrote an article on the journey to new habits, take tiny steps. And what he said was, people this time of year want to eat better, lose weight, exercise more regularly, sleep and relax more. But he said there's a painful gap between the changes people want and what they actually do. And his article is exactly what you just said. He said, on the journey to new habits, take tiny steps. And what the article goes on to say is, and it made me think of you because the first tiny step you took was, I think, did you guys win the 9-day program? When you
Harry won
okay.
it and Ryan 2-1-1,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, so you took a maybe not quite as tiny a step as the Forever Pack because you were cleansing, right?
Well, it was a tinier step than what I was doing in my lifestyle before, what I was doing with running, stadiums, riding my bike to work, eating tuna out of a can, compared to drinking some delicious shakes. And
right. So it really was a tinier step than what you were trying to do. And he said that motivation, he said the first thing is don't think you have to create motivation. And that's really where you were. You were trying to motivate yourself to do these things that weren't working, right? And he said choose habits you already are eager to adopt. So in your mind, there has to be the desire, the eagerness to do it, right? And the second step is to go tiny. Small is successful, sustainable, because it's simpler. And the third thing he talks about is what Tony Robbins talked about. He said you're going to have to figure out how to work it into your rituals. So he said design a prompt. And that would mean automatically we do hundreds of behaviors. So you've got to figure out how to fit that into your hundreds of behaviors. When I started having trouble with my periodontal disease, I realized, okay, I'm going to brush my teeth every time I go to the bathroom. Because brushing my teeth is optional, but going to the bathroom is not optional. It's a small thing tied to something that's already one of my rituals, okay? So he said, whether it's flushing the toilet, turning on the coffee pot in the morning, buckling your seatbelt, and then once you create that new habit, you need to celebrate it, okay?
Yep.
And that leads to the intense positive emotion, which is the core to your book, The Feeling is the Secret. The emotion is going to carry you forward. Okay? And repetition is what's going to create the habit over and over again, but it's the emotion that you attach to them from the start.
Right. Yeah, and I wanted to touch on this and then we'll go into the book here. Thanks, Malcolm. And thanks, Melissa. I want to start jumping into the book here, but just piggybacking on what you just said, and I'm not sure what's going on with my screen. It keeps losing the iPad. There we go.
Yeah.
So, with what you're talking about right here, I was thinking about this earlier today, and it piggybacks right off of what you were just sharing. We've talked about, for those of you that have seen and the Zooms and the things we've been talking about when it comes to the self-betrayal, the leadership and self-deception book, and when we self-betray and then the justifications. I'm not going to go through that right now, but for those of you that haven't seen that, I would recommend the Zoom that we have at the YouTube channel. And I think we did one where we made it part of this series as an attachment. Just because we know this now, a lot of people are having huge ahas. Like some of you saw Anna share her experience, and Jojo and I are really getting some amazing insight on the power of this book and its impact on people's lives. And I'm talking like stuff that we have not seen in 14 years. It's really helping us as mentors to help people self-discover and find what's stopping them right here. And they're setting new goals and their actions are starting to become more efficient. However, I just want to bring this up because even with this book and the principles that we're learning and we're going through, changing habits are very difficult. And you may have heard the phrase, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So all of a sudden we see something and we realize, oh, that's a discipline issue. And we start to take these actions that we weren't taking before based on what we are now aware of. But the ultimate, like creating the efficient actions on the level, you guys, the spirit's willing and the flesh is weak. Your patterns and your habits are going to keep causing you to fall down. Keep like missing the mark that you're setting for yourself. The thing is don't give up. You've got to keep reviewing the compelling reasons that for why you're great, why you have this magnificence within you that you can pull out through doing the efficient actions. You got to keep reviewing that, like you've got to review your compelling reasons to accomplish your Isagenix goals. Your compelling reasons through the vehicle of Isagenix. You got to review that every morning. So you stay in the inception phase. You've got to stay in the inception phase with your greatness that's within you as well. And those are the two things that I work on every morning, is reviewing and being told by a mentor that really lights me up that I'm great, that I have this magnificent ability within me. And I just got to do my part to bring it out. And I review that every morning, you guys, because I got to stay in the inception phase with that because my flesh is weak. So even with the efficient actions that I've created for myself, treating my Isagenix business like a job now, like it owns me for 8, 9 hours, 10 hours a day, I've fallen short. I've fallen down, but I get back up because of all you got to do is finding one. Let me change this. Find one compelling reason to get back up and keep going forward. I don't know why it's doing. I don't know if somebody's hitting something on their thing or if it's just my computer and I need to update something, but for some reason this keeps popping off. What does that say there? So I'm not sure what's going on there. All right, so
Oh my goodness.
it just keeps going out, doesn't it? Well, we'll jump into the book now anyway. So I just wanted to show those things there. Finding one compelling reason to tap into that greatness that's within me. One more time. Do it one more time, Dave. And keep moving forward. Keep going after your compelling vision because the power within me is there to do it. when I partner up with God in his ways, aligning with his principles, then I can make this happen because it's all within me. That's why I listened to Bob Proctor this morning. That's why I've listened to Tony Robbins now in 30 minutes to the next 30 years of your life. Why have I listened to that over 25 times in the last 2 weeks? Because I've got to be reminded. I got to review that greatness that's within me, and it's within you. And I got to tap into it and stay in the inception phase with that. Even though we know this and we can see this clearly, if you don't keep reviewing that and your compelling reasons for why you want to build your Isagenix business, that goal that you set that's worthy of your life, and what you see as the justifications you've been trading for that dream life. So the dream life's over here, right? If we do the efficient actions, we have to reach our dream life. I'm not sure what's going on with the iPad. I'm just going to leave that there. So we have to reach the goal if we take the efficient actions. How could you not? They're efficient actions. They are income-producing activities. They move you to the goal. So what are the things that I'm trading that dream life for? Those justifications. If I'm not tapped into that, my greatness and my compelling vision, then I'm going to fall out of the inception phase somewhere in there, and I'm going to stop doing the disciplined work. And it's always on a mental level first. It's always on, and this is what's cool. Who can do that? Anybody. That doesn't cost you anything, except for the effort and the discipline. That's what it's going to cost you. But you can't really do that until you get the knowledge and the understanding. So, but it all comes full circle, you guys. So again, you've got to review those things daily. That's a discipline. Those are, right, Jojo? We've been talking to people about the reviewing their compelling vision every morning. It's not an option. It's one of the actions that must be taken every day. It's not an option. And the thing about it is it's so easy not to do it, especially if you don't really get the principles. If you haven't put 1 + 1 = 2 when it comes to your spiritual power and the principles you have to be in alignment with to facilitate that great power, then it's easy not to do it.
Well, if you're looking at the really basest piece of it, is what you focus on, you find. Every morning, focusing on a negative piece of it, or focusing on the justification, or focusing on the betrayal, or we're just going to find more and more and more of that. Nobody has any money. Everybody says no. Like all those things that we tell ourselves. But when you turn that around and you focus on your compelling vision, and that's your focus throughout the day, and every single time your brain goes to the justification, you come back to the compelling vision. It's always going to be a little bit of a ping pong match, because the little voice is going to get in there and tell you bad stuff. But the more you get to the other side and reconnect to the compelling vision, that will be your focus. So you're going to find more things that justify your compelling vision than justify your justification.
That's right. It's tricky the way the mind works too. This is an exact science. There's no way to not reach your dream life, your goals, if you just follow the protocol. But there's human frailties. The flesh is weak. So that's why my whole point about this is you've got to stay tapped into find one compelling reason in that moment when your flesh is weak. I did it this morning with squeegeeing the shower wall. I did it this morning with, there was something that it was actually conscious, like, oh, I just found one compelling reason. That's what made me do that. I don't know if it was when I was working out or what it was I was doing, but I found one compelling reason to take that step forward right here. And it was just a simple one, but it's the compound effect that it will have over time. All right, so let's go into chapter 3 here. We're at the beginning of chapter 3 in the Science of Getting Rich. No one is kept poor because opportunity has been taken away from him, because other people have monopolized the wealth. Just think about that and how you might be a victim, right? This is a principle that he's teaching here. It's so full of principles. And if you don't catch it, you won't become aware of the negating philosophy that you have in your paradigm. So how many of us feel like the opportunity is already taken? Like, you know, Lynn Hagedorn has already taken everybody that wants to join Isogenics. So what are the justifications? We could use rationalizations. There's probably some other words there as well. You know, the justification, rationalization, procrastinations. You know, what are those things that are the undertones that guide me, my governing, guiding philosophy? Do I feel like, you know, if I don't get this one particular house, then all of the great building lots are gone. I'll never find a house that would fulfill my needs in the place that I want it, right? Abundance, there's a law of abundance. There is no lack of anything. Nobody can monopolize anything. You may be shut off from engaging in business in certain lines. Now, this is kind of, this is entertaining to me, because this is back in the early 1900s. And he's going to go into some of the things that you could pursue back then. Like, he's going to try and get your creative juices going. So listen to what he says here. You may be shut off from engaging in business in certain lines, but there are other channels open to you. Probably it would be hard for you to get control of any great railroad systems. That field is pretty well monopolized. But the electric railway business still is in its infancy and offers plenty of scope in it for enterprise. And listen to this. I mean, like, did he not call this one? And it will be but a very few years until traffic and transportation through the air will become a great industry. The airline industry, you guys. And in all its branches will give employment to hundreds of thousands and perhaps to millions of people. Why not turn your attention to the development of the aerial transportation instead of competing with J.J. Hill and others for a chance in the steam railway world? So could I still go for the steam railway world? Yeah, I could. Anything is possible. But he's trying to open up and create a broader perspective for you, rather than feel like you're competing. There is no competition, it's creation. Put competition with a line through it. There is no competition in Isogenics. There's no competition for the people who are going to utilize the products out there. It's creation. It is quite true that if you are a workman in the employ of the Steel Trust, you have very little chance of becoming the owner of the plant in which you work. But it is also true that if you will commence to act in a certain way, you can soon leave the employ of the Steel Trust. You can buy a farm, and you can buy a farm from 10 to 40 acres and engage in business as a producer of foodstuffs. There is still opportunity at this time for men who will live upon small tracts of land and cultivate the same intensively. Such men will certainly get rich. You may say that it's impossible for you to get the land, but I'm going to prove to you that it is not impossible, and that you can certainly get a farm if you will work in a certain way, if you'll go to work in a certain way. So think about that, just parallel that with your Isogenics business. Well, I can't do it full time. Well, he's gonna say, if you do things in a certain way, you will increase your income to where you can do it full time. At different periods of the time of opportunity sets in different directions according to the needs of the whole and the particular stage of social evolution which has been reached. At present, in America, it is setting toward agriculture and the allied industries and professions. Today, opportunity is open before the factory worker in his line. So he's saying, okay, so here I was as a mechanic. I feel like I'm backed into a corner. I got a paper route that I'm doing every morning. I feel stuck. Like, what am I going to do? I read a book on investment, you know, and I could buy, you know, apartments or whatever, or I could buy a house and rent it out. I feel stuck. Like, how am I going to be able to do that? But he said, no, Dave, if that's what you really wanted, we can make a way for you to do that for its fulfillment. It might not seem like there's a way, but if you do things in a certain way that I'm about to teach you, then yeah, you can. You can totally come up with everything needful to be able to start investing in real estate or whatever the situation might be. Same thing with my Isogenics business. The same thoughts could have gone through my head. Well, I'm a mechanic. I have a full-time job, and plus I have a paper out in the morning. I fix cars at night. I'm barely surviving. I'm working 16 to 18 hours a day. How am I going to build a network marketing business? A business of distribution. But all I did was follow what he told me to do in the book. And a way was made. Bob was talking about something this morning. What was it? The person wanted a nice parking spot. So he was presenting to a corporate office, and the person in the front wasn't really listening to him. He could tell. And so they had a talk. He talked with him, had a very upfront talk with him during a break. And the person, and he got down to, well, what is it that you want? Like, you're not listening to me, but what is it that you want? He said, well, I want a parking space under the building. Because he lived in Canada, and you'd have to scrape your windshield most of the time during the year to be able to see out your windshield. And most of the time sometimes the car wouldn't start. It was so cold. He wanted a parking spot under the building. And Bob said, oh, is that all you want? I could teach you how to get the whole building if you'd be listening to me here in this class. You can become the owner of the building and park anywhere you want if you'll just listen to me. And he said that guy went on to become a president of another company because he listened. He opened up and was, played at 100%. He listened. So it doesn't matter where your current position is. And what he's trying to do is just help you to realize and open up and expand. Look, you might be a factory worker, but there's so much opportunity out there. Just pick one. Just pick one and decide. And I can show you how to get it. Okay, so today, opportunity is open before the factory worker in his line. It's open for Dave as a mechanic. And look at how things have opened up, you guys. Network marketing, and with Isagenix and the network marketing industry, there's no ceiling anymore. Sky's the limit. And some people can't even decide on what it is they want. And yet we've evolved to working tracts of land, or maybe thinking about this industry or that, to where now the sky's the limit, your imagination. It's open before the businessman who supplies the farmer more than before the one who supplies the factory worker, and before the professional man who waits upon the farmer more than before the one who serves the working class. There is abundance of opportunity for the man who will go with the tide instead of trying to swim against it. I read a quote back when I was in my early 20s, and I remember it to this day. My fear for the future is not the lack of opportunity for all the highly motivated, but the lack of highly motivated for all the opportunity that there will be. So the factory worker, either as individuals or as a class, are not deprived of opportunity. But how many people feel like they are? How many people out there, you even hear it in the news, and then they exacerbate that garbage, that we're suppressed, we're held down, that the wealthy just keep getting wealthier, and that they're taking all the money, and and what is that message that's being sent out there? The workers are not being kept down by their masters. They are not being ground by the trust and combinations of capital. As a class, they are where they are because they do not do things in a certain way. If workers of America chose to do so, they could follow the example of their brothers in Belgium and other countries and establish great department stores and cooperative industries. They could elect men of their own class to office and pass laws favoring the development of such cooperative industries. And in a few years, they could take peaceable possession of the industrial field. The working class may become the master class whenever they will begin to do things in a certain way. The law of wealth is the same for them as it is for all others. So here they are just trying to scratch and claw their way to opportunity. You guys, they've laid the foundation for us. So many people have sacrificed their lives to create what we have today. And that's exactly what's happened over here. Amway was taken to court by the bigger corporations because those bigger corporations were afraid of them dipping in to their profits. And yet truth prevailed. The working class may become the master class whenever they will begin to do things in a certain way. The law of wealth is the same for them as it is for all others. This they must learn, and they will remain where they are as long as they continue to do as they do. The individual worker, however, is not held down by the ignorance or the mental slothfulness of his class. He can follow the tide of opportunity to riches and this book will tell him how. And we have so many stories of individuals who have risen up out of their quote unquote class, their environment, the slums, the ghettos, whatever the case might be, the working class. I am an absolute victory story of rising up out of the working class. And so many people in Isagenix are. That's the amazing thing about Isagenix. What that does is it changes the psyche of some people when they're at the event. And all of a sudden, they start doing what Wallace Wattles is teaching here. They start to believe in themselves in a certain way. And then they go on from one magnificent win to the next, right there within the company. No one is kept in poverty by a shortness in the supply of riches. There is more than enough for all. A palace as large as the Capitol at Washington might be built for every family on earth from the building material in the United States alone. That goes along with what Sterling W. Sills was teaching in the Law of Abundance. You take a tomato plant and you can have 1 million tomato plants by the end of the year. Take one potato from Sir Wally whatever his name was, and feed a nation. A palace as large as the Capitol at Washington might be built for every family on earth from the building material in the United States alone. Somebody had said actually in the state of Texas alone, you could build a mansion with enough of the material for everybody on the planet. This country would produce wool, cotton, linen, and silk enough to clothe each person in the world, finer than Solomon was arrayed in all of his glory, together with food enough to feed them all luxuriously. So again, he's still working on our paradigm here. Now he's bringing things down into he's bringing them to a narrower road here in what are you pursuing? And if you pursue that thing in a certain way and where you're at, don't think that's the only opportunity that's before you. You know, my family, what was that movie with Shia LaBeouf? He's his dad was a shoemaker, and his dad before him was a shoemaker, and his dad before him was a shoe repair, maker, whatever. And so they felt like they're in this narrow road, and then all of a sudden something happens and that chain is broken because of the way you think. So he's just trying to narrow things down here to open up and expand a broader perspective of what's available to you. The visible supply is practically inexhaustible, and the invisible supply really is inexhaustible. This is where the book started catching my absolute focus and attention, because he's going to go into this invisible supply here where everything is made from. And for some reason, I was just ready to hear this information. And I started to realize that in order to accomplish the goals and dreams that I had never accomplished before, there was something that needed to take place inside of me. There was the catalyst for me accomplishing my goals was not outside of me, it was inside of me. And this chapter, I believe this chapter, yeah, this is it. We're coming right into it, these next few paragraphs. You've really got to be open to this. I was at a point in my life like T. Harv Eker, who wrote The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. I have exhausted everything I knew to do, and I gave everything I had to give, like that level of excellence into everything I knew to do, and it wasn't working, you guys. I was praying for God to take my life. And so I was open. I was ready, like, okay, Bruce Lee, I'm empty. Not only am I not going to make the cup not be full, I'm going to empty that sucker. Let's start from the foundation. You teach me what to do. Okay, Davidson, wax on, wax off, right? And I was ready. I was so ready. And for some reason, this was the piece that I was missing. So he says, everything you see on earth is made from one original substance out of which all things proceed. Everything, not only on this earth, everything in the entire solar system. New forms are constantly being made and older ones are dissolving. but all are shapes assumed by one thing. I mean, this guy was getting my attention. There is no limit to the supply of formless stuff. All of a sudden, I started thinking of formless stuff. And I don't know if I thought it this way when I was reading that, but I had heard the words intelligence before, like intelligences. That was a word that I had already been familiar with, but in no way in relation to what he's about to frame up with intelligences. And now we call it the quantum world. And the way that I very quickly started framing that intelligence up in my head, you know, atoms and neurons, and then I learned about bosons and quarks, which were smaller than atoms. And all of those are unseeable by the physical eye. But I started thinking of a TV. Remember when TVs did, and the broadcasting was over, and they were done for the night? What happened to the screen on the TV? It was just this buzz, this like, right? And I remember just staring into the TV, you know, like being mesmerized by that. And I could see little forms that were starting to shape up just with staring at it without blinking. You ever do one of those little posters they have where it looks kind of like the TV, just it's like this stuff? And I remember just looking into the TV, and it was just mesmerizing. And I could see these things that were floating around. They were kind of like shapeless forms, right? And then you did that too. I wonder how many of us did that, right? And the shapes would like move within all of this fuzz. And I don't remember how to, just they were like, it was like a blob of something that started moving around. And then they have those posters now where when you do that with the posters, I love those posters. You have to really not think. You have to really not focus on anything. And then all of a sudden it appears. And they have posters and you're like, oh my gosh, here's this 3D image. I love those things. So, but it takes some work to not think and to not focus on something in order to see that. And so I don't know if I did that right away or if this is, you know, after I started learning this from Wallace, but there was something about intelligences that was already in my philosophy. Not framed up in a conscious concept of it, but here he is. He's going to frame it up now. He's going to frame up what I know about intelligences and what I've thought about it, and that it's this unseeable stuff that God works with. There is no limit to the supply of formless stuff or original substance. The universe is made out of it. And he framed up a little bit too. Look, things are always in a constant state of flux. Things are always in change. Mountains don't stay there forever, right? And nothing really stays the same. You look at I loved watching the land just south of where we live right here, just a couple blocks away. They took land that was just weeds and bumps and just a blank, huge lot, and they turned it into a beautiful condominium development that wasn't there before, right? Things are in a constant state of change. So there is no limit to the supply of formless stuff or original substance. The universe is made out of it, but it was not all used in making the universe. The spaces in, through, and between the forms of the visible universe are permeated and filled with the original substance, with formless stuff. So we look at, you know, our planet, and then there's the moon. Well, that planet and the moon was made with all the stuff that's in between there. It looks like empty space, but it's not completely empty. The spaces in and through and in between the forms of the visible universe are permeated and filled with the original stuff from which it was made. With the with the raw material of all things, 10,000 times as much has been made, might still be made, and even then we should not have exhausted the supply of universal raw material. I like what Mary Morrissey says in Working with the Law. She quotes, you could scoop as much as you want, and there's still an infinite amount left. There is no limited supply. In the movie The Secret, what is it, Beckwith? He says, that's the lie, that there's a limited amount, and if we don't get our share, it's because somebody else took it. That's the lie. No man, therefore, is poor because nature is poor, or because there is not enough to go around. So whether you believe this or not, what if you just went with it? What if you just went with it and you said, okay, I don't know everything, and this sounds like hokey pokey stuff. That's what T. Harv Eker said. It sounded really hokey. But he said, I had already exhausted everything else I know to do, and I tried some pretty hokey stuff myself. So why not just go with this hokey thing and see what happens? Now that's a discipline, because to go with it doesn't mean just to hear it and agree and nod your head. It means to start to put your life in alignment with it. So what if I just did that and just not worried about what that might entail? No man, therefore, is poor because nature is poor, or because there is not enough to go around. Nature is an inexhaustible storehouse of riches. The supply will never run short. Original substance, and that went right in a line with what I knew about God. Doesn't that go right in alignment for those of us that are faith-based in a supreme being I call God, that he's made worlds that are numbered more than the sands of the sea? It goes right in alignment with my belief in God. So, but the paradigm might be, let's see, no man therefore is poor because nature is poor, because there is not enough to go around. So me believing in this hokey stuff, maybe that might offend God. I think that's the rationalization and the justification for not embracing this. And yet we all agree that that is right in harmony with who we believe God is, and that supreme power, and what they're doing with this unlimited supply.
Well, David, it depends. What I came to realize is that when I believe that the world is a zero-sum game where there's only so much to go around, I'm betraying myself with that thought.
You're trading it for the truth.
I'm justifying, oh, well, nothing's ever going to work out for Malcolm, and everything's been taken, and there's no room at the top for Malcolm, right?
All the people that are going to get on Isagenix, I'm not going to find them, because I'm only going to find the ones that say no.
They're all gone. Everybody's heard about Isagenix, right? And that's my choice. I can betray myself with that, or I can edify myself by reading something like this and saying, okay, that's my new belief, and then taking a series of small steps to get to where that really becomes my belief.
Yeah, we're going to do an experiment on some small steps in this course, you guys. We're going to do some experiments like they did in the movie The Secret. Like, just think of somebody, or think of a flower, and see how long it takes for you to actually see that thing manifest. So we're going to go ahead. I want to see if I can get through, I don't know. Let's see. I'm going to read through the rest of this real quick. And I know we're right at the top of the hour. And then we'll go back and we'll
by the way, I put the book up on the screen.
Yeah, I can see it. Thanks.
Okay.
So let's go through and read this. It'll give you something to think about. Some of you have probably already read it, if not all of you. But we'll go back and dissect this. We'll probably stay on these little paragraphs for the next couple Zooms. So original substance is alive with creative energy. And remember what I was thinking about, intelligence, and is constantly producing more forms. When the supply of building material is exhausted, more will be produced. When the soil is exhausted, so that foodstuffs and materials for clothing will no longer grow upon it, it will be renewed, or more soil will be made. When all the gold and silver has been dug from the earth, if man is still in such a stage of social development that he needs gold and silver, more will be produced from the formless. The formless stuff responds to the needs of man. It will not let him be without any good thing. This is true of man collectively. The race as a whole is always abundantly rich. And if individuals are poor, it is because they do not follow the certain way of doing things, which makes the individual man rich. The formless stuff is intelligent. It is stuff which thinks. It is alive. and it is always impelled toward more life. The number one law of the universe is progress and expansion. It is the natural and inherent impulse of life to seek to live more. It is the nature of intelligence to enlarge itself, and of consciousness to seek to extend its boundaries and find fuller expression. You can't turn that off within you. You could suppress it, but you can't turn off your thoughts and your desire for a better life than you're currently living. We may call that jealousy or coveting, but it's a principle that people suppress. It's not coveting and jealousy to want more. It's a divineness that's within you, and you can't turn it off. You can't turn it off in kids. You can channel it and direct it intelligently, but you can't turn it off. It's like Mary Morrissey's granddaughter. She picked her up every morning for a week in her new car with the DVD player in her new car. The child loved the DVD player in her car, watching the movies as they're driving down the street. Within 2 days, the child wanted more. Grandma, I wish your car cake or baked cookies and cakes. Grandma, I wish your car baked cookies and cakes. Her mind was already racing for expansion, more expression, fulfilling a need. The universe of forms has been made by formless living substance, throwing itself into form in order to express itself more fully. The universe is a great living presence, always moving inherently toward more life and fuller expression or fuller functioning. It's trying to do that through you. Nature is formed for the advancement of life. Its impelling motive is the increase of life. For this cause, everything which can possibly minister to life is bountifully provided. There can be no lack unless God is to contradict himself and nullify his own works. You are not kept poor by lack in the supply of riches. It is a fact, which I shall demonstrate a little farther on, that even the resources of the formless supply are at the command of the man or woman who will act and think in a certain way. Man, I was lit up. I kept reading the book. I couldn't stop. I read the whole book that night. And then I went back and dissected it and learned how to practically apply thinking in a certain way. And that's what we're going to get down into with specifically our Isagenix business and how to frame that up in a channel that will start to bring into your life those things that you desire. You've got to do things in a certain way. There is a part that you have to play in this. But that energy, that formless energy, that power is constantly flowing through you. It's how we frame it up and how it comes out of us. And you're already doing it. You've done it either consciously or unconsciously. And I know some of you on here, like Casey, you're lit up. You're probably like doing burpees right now because you have so much energy flowing through you right now. Because you're like, yes, this is exactly what I've learned. I started to redirect that energy that was coming through me in a certain and scientific way. You blueprinted it and it came out and it started manifesting itself in the material world. And so you guys, get ready for the ride of your life. Embrace this. Just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it's not true. There are lots of things we didn't understand before that are now a part of our lives. Don't negate this one. Don't put a barrier between it. Just experiment. We're in the laboratory right now, and you're going to experiment. When you were in the lab and they told you to mix certain things together, you didn't question it and say, I'm not going to do that because my paradigm says that's not the way it is. Treat this like the experimental lab. We're going to put certain ingredients together and we're going to see what comes out because of it. Be open like that, like you're back in the high school science class. All right. Okay. If you could take that out of share mode. There we go. Okay. Anybody? I know that we're right at the top of the hour. Any ahas? Any resistance coming up for anybody? Anything anybody want to share that you're feeling right now that would be worthy and helpful for us as a group and for you to get that out?
Dave, can I share something real quick? It's
Yes.
Anna.
Okay.
So I've listened to Tony Robbins' 30 minutes for the next 30 years of your life. And it's every time I listen to it, I hear another thing. But what I heard this morning is everyone in life gets their musts and they don't get their shoulds. And so when something becomes a must, then willpower is no longer an issue, right? Oftentimes we say, well, I have no willpower to lose the 10 pounds or whatever it is that we're trying to achieve. But once it becomes a must, there is no other choice but than you to achieve it, right? So the example that I'm going to give is for this morning. I get up at 4:30, I go to the gym at 5 o'clock, and I do things before my family gets up. My alarm didn't go off this morning. I got up at 5:15. Previously, that could have entirely derailed my entire day and probably week and probably the entire month. And I said, that's crap. That's not who I am anymore. So I got up, I did my 10 by 10, I did my meditation, I listened to the 30 and 30. I read more of Leadership and Self-Deception, which by the way is absolutely blowing my mind right now. And it's all because I've chosen to raise my standards to meet my vision. So.
Yeah, that part with Tony, awesome. Yes. I mean, we're going to just watch you soar, Casey. We're going to watch Anna go just like you did. I mean, she's just going to go from one magnificent win to the next. I see it. I feel it. I hear it in her voice and the ahas that we've been having together. And so one of the things with that Tony Robbins, he talks about a smoker. And this is what, where you don't need willpower anymore. Your must, the things that really like you've decided and you've got to have them. It doesn't take willpower or discipline anymore. So he said, I hear people like a smoker when they're like, I want to quit smoking, but I've always been a smoker and it's just something that I've done. And it's just like, I've just always been a smoker. He says, oh, that person's going to quit for a week or two and they're going to be back at it because their concept of themselves, their standard that they hold for themselves is, I've always been a smoker. So they're going in to quit with the attitude, I've always been a smoker. And he says, when somebody just says, you know what, I'm not going to smoke anymore, and they've made that decision, and that must be the way it is, he says, they don't need willpower. They're just not going to smoke anymore. They've made the decision. It's not the concept of themselves anymore. So their standards have risen above and beyond of being a smoker. And it doesn't take willpower. Now, there might be times where it does just because we have that biological rhythm or because the excitement and the inception phase wears off. So, the fact that you're listening to that, Anna, I know you're going to stay in the game as long as you continue to make that not an option. It's not an option, you guys, to do these things every morning. I'm still doing them today, millions of dollars into Isagenix. I'm still doing these fundamental things. There are fundamental actions that are not optional. The fundamentals mean that they are fundamental to me continuing to reach my goals. Anybody else? Thank you for that share. I mean, when you hold those out, it inspires people and it helps them to relate a little bit more, maybe profoundly more.
So
and those are the little trip ups that we talk about, right? The little trips, where the flesh was weak in the moment. Your spirit's strong. Keep your spirit strong and you'll keep getting up and moving forward. Were you going to say something, Paris?
I am. So I just have a question right on that note. As far as coaching the people that we are bringing into our organization as customers, I just signed up somebody, yesterday, and she's very hesitant but hopeful because a lot of her friends are on Isagenix and have had great results. But the thing is, though, is it seems like I've always had intestinal issues and it runs in my family, and she's very much, how would you kind of like... She's
like the smoker, right? I've always been a smoker. I've always had intestinal issues. I'm big boned is what, he uses some of these examples, Tony Robbins. You got to change your mindset. Otherwise, she will go right back to gravitating towards the vibration that she is.
Yeah.
So what happens is when people get started, they got their vibration went up because the action of getting started is a different standard. So they got excited about something. Maybe it's the new year, New Year's resolution. I've got to do it this time, and they get their vibration up and then they get enrolled. But however, if their standards are down here, their vibration's down here, and she's going to go back there. That's her protocol for thinking. So I would get her to listen to the Tony Robbins. I'd get her to listen to 30 and then mastermind that with her.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
and then get her on the Zoom that talks about self-betrayal
Right.
and the justifications that she's using. And you could say, do you see how the intestinal issue, that is a justification you've been using? I mean, you even shared it with me, you know, you even articulated it with me. But, you know, you got to be careful on how they got to discover that for themselves. You can't tell them that because it just
Yeah.
ricochets right off and they're not changing who they are. We've got to, as teachers, get effective at getting people to discover within themselves and recognizing where they're at and who they are, and then changing that concept of themselves.
Okay, awesome. I will do that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Anybody else? I'll take one more if somebody has something, and then I've got to jump off.
Because we don't want the justification to become the expectation. We want the action side of the chart to be the expectation. When the justification becomes the expectation, that's where we're really off the rails. But we can help people move to the other side.
Yeah, changing the expectations. That's who you are. And we got to get people to recreate the concept of themselves. Once Neville Goddard, this is a good quote to write down, change the concept of yourself and you automatically alter your future. Change the concept of yourself and you automatically alter your future. I shared that on the screen at Isagenix celebration in front of 14,000 people. Change the concept of yourself and you automatically alter your future. You're going to start to understand that as we go through the book. You'll understand the principle of that and how the thinking stuff is going to respond to who you are. Not what you wish for, but who you are. Because that's how you're reframing up that energy that's coming through you. Remember the magnet that I had, and let's see, going back to this slide right here. This is the concept of who you are, the magnet. And it attracts every needful thing, just like an acorn does. An acorn doesn't have an oak tree in it. The oak tree's in the universe. It's in its outside environment, just like your Isagenix business is in your environment. So the acorn already has a concept of itself. It has a pattern blueprint, and it can't change it. God gave it that pattern. And the acorn doesn't have the mental faculties to change the concept of itself. The acorn cannot say consciously, I want to be an orange tree, and then adjust its blueprint and the concept of itself. The acorn is going to continue to exhibit the pattern plan of an oak tree. But the oak tree is not in the acorn. Just like your future Isagenix business that you're holding for yourself in your compelling vision is not you right now. But when you change the concept of yourself and embrace that in the spiritual level, you're working with that thinking stuff. And you've given it a new pattern plan that's going to start to attract different things to you. So yeah, you can be the acorn that, you know, you could be an oak tree, but you could change your mind and say, no, I do want to become an orange tree, or I want to become a pineapple tree. Or I don't even want to be a tree. I want to be a flower. You have the ability to do that. Nature doesn't, because it's not after the image of God. It's not created in the image of God. It doesn't have those mental faculties. It's not the offspring of God. We are. So once we change the concept of ourselves, not wish for it, but literally do the work through a certain way, we will change that pattern within us. We start attracting every like thing that starts to manifest that in our world. It's immutable. It's a science. There's no way that it couldn't. But
That's how I attracted you, Dave. In a
absolutely.
nutshell.
You changed the concept of yourself. You showed me the slides that you had framed up.
Totally.
I attracted Isagenix. I have
Yes.
my dream book that I created before finding before Isagenix found me. So anybody can do that. You just got to know why, how, and the scientific way of doing it. But it doesn't cost you anything to do this. Only your old paradigm. Only your old concept of yourself.
Huge benefit.
Yeah.
That's
All right, you guys, we're out of here.
Third huge benefit.
What's that?
That's the third huge benefit. We talk about health, we talk about money, but the personal development, the journey to better health and better finances, the change that happens is bigger than both of the others. It's amazing, isn't it?
Oh, it's our purpose. All right, you guys. Have a great day, and we'll see you tonight on the Zoom for those of you that are going to be inviting
Thank you so
guests.
much.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, thanks you guys.